Can I beat the Mongols scenario on the hardest difficulty level in the game? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to try and do in this video. My name is Sadie, and I have a dream of having 100% of the achievements in Civ 5, and I'm actually pretty close to getting them all, so I've set myself the goal of getting all the achievements by the end of the year. At this stage, most of the achievements left are for beating the various scenarios in the game on Deity, which brings me to my goal for today's video. If I can beat the Mongol scenario, I'll earn the Deity achievement for it, as well as 4 other achievements. That's a total of 5 achievements for the price of 1, which is a pretty darn good deal if I do say so myself. But this won't be easy. This scenario is a big step up in difficulty from the previous one I covered on my channel. So, can I beat the Mongol scenario and claim my achievements? Or will this challenge prove to be too much for me? Let's find out. So, how does this scenario work? Well, it's pretty straightforward. We'll be playing as Genghis Khan of the Mongolians, since they're the only playable faction in this scenario. This gives us access to their powerful unique unit, the Kashik, which is a ranged mounted unit that can move after attacking. We also have a unique Great General replacement, the Khan, and our civilization bonus gives us extra combat strength when fighting city-states. Our goal is to conquer the 8 other civilizations in this scenario, those being the Jin dynasty, China, Japan, India, Persia, Arabia, Russia, and Byzantium. And when I say conquer, I don't mean just taking their capital or something. You have to completely wipe all of these civs off the map, taking every last one of their cities. Between each of these civs, there's about 30 cities on the map you must capture. Oh, and you only have a turn limit of 100, so I better move quick. The game starts in the medieval era and has the normal tech tree, although I do believe that other civs start with additional technologies we don't have access to at the game's start. There are a couple unique rules that give us a slight advantage. Firstly, if we conquer a city-state, we gain a bonus based on the city-state's type. For example, conquering a cultural city-state gives us a free social policy. When we conquer a civ, we gain a free technology, which is also pretty useful. But even with these bonuses, this challenge is going to be quite difficult. Let's get started with this scenario now. There's a little bit of setup to do first though. I must select a technology to research, and considering how much conquest I'm going to be doing, I'll desperately be needing all the happiness I can get. So I queue up construction, which unlocks colosseums, as well as optics, since I'll need to embark later in the scenario. I begin with 4 horsemen and 1 Kashik, but I use my gold to upgrade 1 horseman into a Kashik since I'll need more than just 1 in order to conquer cities. I also choose to produce another Kashik in my city, since I have a few spare horse resources. As my next turn begins, I'm prompted to choose a social policy, and I realize I've made a bit of a mistake by upgrading my horseman last turn, since if I'd gotten this policy first it would have been cheaper. I take the policy now though, and can afford a second upgrade with a discount. But oh well, let's get started with my first conquest on the city-state of Western Zia. They're a natural pick due to their proximity, as well as providing more horses which are going to be crucial for me in this scenario. And within a few short turns I've taken the city for myself, which I decide to annex. Since the city-state was militaristic, I'm granted some free units, in this case 2 horsemen, which appear next to my capital. By now I've also met my closest neighbours, the Jin dynasty and China, both of whom will make excellent first targets, although it seems they don't like each other very much, as China declares war on Jin. Well, I guess I better jump on that bandwagon. Zhangzong leads the Jin dynasty. Their unique ability gives them extra yields from city-states, and their unique building gives them extra culture. But that stuff is irrelevant. The only unique they have that really has any effect on me is their unique unit, the Naurusian elephant, which replaces the knight. These elephants are a bit slower than knights, but make up for it with their extra strength and their combat bonus against mounted units, which makes them a strong counter for my Mongolian horde. They also start with the Great Wall Wonder built in Beijing, making movement costs double in their territory, which makes moving through their lands quite difficult. The war begins slowly as I kill a few of their units and send my troops to try and uncover the fog of war. Luckily, the Chinese troops serve as a great distraction as they attack the city of Xi'an. They're even kind enough to weaken it for me so I can take the city myself. I immediately start raising the city, as each city I hold increases my unhappiness, so I'm going to want to raise most of the cities I can, so as to avoid that. I also make sure to sell the library in this burning city, as that gives me some free gold. I won't really mention this again, but I'll try and do this with each city I raise to get some extra gold, since gold is very important in this scenario. As I begin my attack on Beijing, I earn enough XP for a Khan to spawn, which will be a tremendous help to me going forward. I make a mistake and leave a horseman in range of Beijing, allowing the Jin to kill them. But the next time I'm able to take the city, which I opt to puppet since capitals can't be raised. With Beijing's fall, I've now acquired the Great Wall for myself. Now that Jin isn't much of a threat and I have 2 Khans, I send 3 of my Kashyyyks and 1 horseman to continue attacking Jin, whilst diverting my other horsemen and Kashyyyks to begin attacking China. Wu Zetian leads China. Their unique ability upgrades their great generals to be twice as strong and to spawn quicker. Their unique building gives them gold, and they have a unique unit, the Chokonu. These crossbowmen replacements have less range strength, but are able to attack twice in one turn. Well, theoretically they're allowed to attack twice in one turn, but the AI doesn't actually do this very much. These Chokonus are also countered pretty hard by my Kashyyyks, which are pretty hard to hit in the first place. So honestly, China would probably be better off with regular crossbowmen. However, they do have a sizable empire with 5 cities in total. They also seem to have quite a few city-states allied with them. Liaoyang falls, pushing me up to 10 unhappiness. And this is where unhappiness will start to become a real problem, as having an unhappiness score in the double digits gives some pretty bad effects on my empire. Firstly, it gives all my units a combat penalty of 33%, which makes all of my wars and conquests harder and take longer, something that doesn't bode well when I'm on such a tight time limit. Being this unhappy also completely tanks my production, making it take forever to train units or build buildings. Luckily, after a turn of raising, my unhappiness goes down to 9, taking away the major combat and production penalty, at least for the moment. I suppose I should take the time to explain how I'm conquering all these cities with such ease. My strategy revolves around my Kashyyyks, which can launch ranged attacks on cities to reduce their health, and then move out of range, since they can't be counter-attacked on the enemy turn. I simply repeat this until the city health is low enough that I can send a horseman in to capture the city. This works extremely well, especially considering these early empires have so few units to stop me with. This also earns me a ton of XP on my Kashyyyks. My plan with promotions is first to get either accuracy 3 or barrage 3, then I can grab logistics for an additional attack each turn, followed by range to allow my Kashyyyks to shoot further away, and then I'll get siege to do extra city damage and speed along my conquests. And speaking of conquests, I seize Jin's last city and officially conquer my first enemy civilization. Conquering another civ grants me not only a free technology of my choice, but also 1,000 gold pieces. I use the gold immediately to purchase a circus and a marketplace in my capital, and for my free tech I choose engineering, since it'll lead to printing press, which unlocks theatres, a building that provides 3 happiness. Chengdu falls, it being the first Chinese city I've captured, and my unhappiness is now 20. Jeez. So now that Jin has fallen, I have 7 more civs to conquer, and 78 turns remaining to me. I meet Japan and decide to sell some luxury resources for gold, which I use to purchase another marketplace. And here I make a pretty big mistake. My plan now was to have the army I used to conquer Jin finish off the Chinese, whilst the army that just took Chengdu would go west to attack Persia. However, due to my unfamiliarity with the map, I mistakenly sent that army south looking for a route west, when I should have taken the road through the desert that was right next to me. It's right there, you dumbass! I also waste time attacking Hangzhou for a few turns before giving up and going to Xiangyang instead. But anyway, China is my current focus, so let's conquer them. Okay, that's China defeated. My second civilization down, leaving me with 6 more, and 57 turns remaining for the rest. Okay, that doesn't sound great. Not a lot of time remains. Whilst I was conquering China, I met a few more of the civs, including India, Persia, and Byzantium? Guys, I think there's something wrong with my Byzantium. I also had this weird visual bug where Persia declared war on the city-state of Almaty, but for some reason, the game used the Roman symbol to represent the city-state. Unless Almaty is secretly the fourth Rome, I don't really understand why they'd have that symbol. I also earned enough culture to get another policy, so I finished off the honor track, meaning I now earn a little bit of gold each time I kill a unit, and my own units earn XP much faster. And speaking of XP, my Kashyyyks from the Chinese conquest have all earned logistics at this point, giving them an extra attack each turn, which is a very powerful promotion. And with China conquered, it's now time to set my sights on other targets. I annexed China's capital city of Hangzhou and plan to use it to get myself some triremes. And I also sent my experienced army northwest towards Korea to get them into position for a very unique civilization, the Japanese, who are situated on their isolated island across the water, meaning they'll be much trickier to invade, despite their relatively small size. I also moved my western army into position above the Persian city of Samarkand in preparation of my war with them, although by the time my army is ready and in position, Persia has captured the city-state of Almaty, which I cannot allow them to keep. It'll be my first target as I begin my war with Persia. Darius I leads Persia. Their unique ability grants their units a 10% combat bonus and an extra movement when they're in a golden age, and their golden ages last 50% longer. This pairs nicely with their unique building, which grants them extra happiness. They have a decently sized empire with lots of hills around their cities, and they absolutely love to spam pikemen, a unit which can do significant damage to my Kashyyyks and one-shot my horsemen. And so, the war begins. But before I can take Almaty, I need to pick off the Persian units that approach my western army. But whilst that war begins in the west, it's time for another one to start in the east. Oda Nobunaga leads Japan. Their unique ability means that their military units fight at full strength, even when wounded, making them a little bit more dangerous than normal. They also receive the unique Samurai unit, which starts with the Shock 1 promotion, as well as a promotion that allows them to generate great generals faster. But the biggest advantage Japan has is their island. Since they're on an island, in order to conquer them, I'll have to embark my units, which leaves them extremely vulnerable. This is why I needed to research optics earlier in the game, as otherwise I wouldn't be able to take their cities. See, this scenario uses the base game Civ 5 mechanics, prior to any of their expansions. This is important to note, because in this, all naval units are ranged, so triremes cannot capture cities since they aren't melee attackers. My plan for the moment is to start going for the city of Daesafu, which is located on its own little island to the south of Korea. And speaking of Korea, fortunately they weren't allied with Japan, so I could just sit my units in their territory and bombard the Japanese cities safely. I mean, Korea certainly isn't happy with this arrangement, but what are they going to do about it? Also, quick side note, but I totally scammed Japan out of some gold before I declared war, which I just thought was really funny. I have a really close call when a Persian knight attacks one of my Kashyyyks and leaves it on 1 health, but fortunately I didn't lose the unit, because that would have been terrible. However, I do lose 1 unit. My first trireme, which was one-shotted by the city of Daesafu. Not great, but at least I know how vulnerable my triremes are now. But soon enough I have another really close call with the Kashyyyk, as I'm sending one to join the Western Army and passing by the city-state of Uyghur, which Persia happens to ally just as my Kashyyyk is next to their units. Luckily though, my Kashyyyk survives, probably due to my combat bonus against city-states. Soon enough, I am able to conquer Daesafu by using an embarked horseman to capture the city, and I protected it by using a trireme to draw the fire away. I'm not really sure how to approach the rest of Japan now though, so for now I think I'll just try and bombard their units from across the water. In the west, Almaty falls not long after, and I choose to liberate the city and restore the city-state of Almaty to power. This grants me an ally with the militaristic city-state, meaning they'll give me some free military units. And on the topic of city-states, I realize I'm still at war with all of China's former allies, so I make peace with those city-states since I have no reason to fight them. And now the sharks are circling, as both India and discount Byzantium declare war on Persia too. And Almaty even gives India a free musketman, which serves to distract the Persians whilst I ready for an attack on Samarkand. Japan soon sends me a peace offer, and mostly on a whim, I ask him to give me his second city, not really expecting him to do so. But he actually does and graciously accepts my generous offer. Dumbass! So now I have a city on the Japanese mainland, and I didn't even need to conquer it. This changes up my plan, and now I start sending my army to land on the northern part of Japan, where I can later attack his capital city, Kyoto. In the west, my attack on Samarkand seems to be going quite well, at least until a Persian pikeman ambushes my horsemen and kills it in one attack. This is really bad, as now I don't have any melee units near the city, meaning I can't actually capture it. The only reason Persia was able to reach my horsemen is due to the extra movement granted by him currently being in a golden age, something I didn't even realize he was in until this happened. Luckily I have plenty of gold, so I purchased a new horseman in my capital, but it'll take a few turns to send him to Samarkand. Almaty then gives me a swordsman, although it'll also take them a few turns to reach the city as well. But soon enough my new troops arrive and I can take Samarkand, and by now I've also researched printing press. This means I've technically entered the Renaissance era now, but more importantly it unlocks theatres, one of the most important buildings for me to have due to them providing 3 happiness, although they are expensive to purchase at around 740 gold each. The war with Persia is going well, as I begin attacking the city of Urgench. However, by this point, I'm getting a bit sloppy, and I allow one of my Kashyyyks to be attacked by a pikeman. However, I'm able to use the swordsman Almaty gave me to block the road and protect my other Kashyyyks from ambushes, and soon enough the Persian capital falls. With my eastern army now situated on the Japanese mainland, I declare war on Oda again and begin to snipe his troops with my deadly Kashyyyks. And by now, I think it's obvious to all of us that I'm not going to be beating this scenario, not with so few turns left and 6 civs still left to conquer, 4 of which I've yet to even fight, but that's okay. I'll do the best I can with the time I have remaining and try to uncover as much of the map as possible so I know what to expect for my next attempt. To that end, I send one of my horse units to scout the lands of Russia and not Greece, so I know roughly what to expect for the next game, and I continue my war with the Persians, learning the layout of their empire. On turn 90, I end up with a positive happiness level for the first time since the start of the scenario, and I think this really shows how my conquests have stalled and become ineffective in the mid to late stages of this game. I mean, if you're playing this scenario on Deity and you have positive happiness, then you're not conquering people quick enough. I meet the final civ in the game, Arabia, as I approach one of the Persian cities, so at least now I've met everyone. But anyway, there's not much to say at this point. I capture Japan's final city and complete their conquest with 7 turns remaining, and then not long after, Persia follows when I capture their last city with 5 turns remaining, something that was made easier since they had lost the city of Tabriz to the Arabians. But yeah, that's gonna wrap things up for my first attempt. I was successful in conquering 4 civs, which is only half of the civs I'm required to conquer, so I've definitely got a way to go in improving that score. But I'm not going to give up just like that. I'm going to play the scenario again, and this time I have a clearer picture of the map, and now I've developed some strategies and tactics that will hopefully allow me to breeze through the early conquests. I just need to play a lot cleaner and not waste as much time. I load the scenario up again, and this time I do things a little differently at the start. I make sure to immediately get the professional army social policy to make upgrading units cheaper before upgrading 2 of my starting horsemen into Kashyyyks. And then I move my troops west towards the city-state of Uyghur, which I declare war on and within a few turns am able to capture. Now this does mean it takes longer before I start my conquest on Jin and China, but by taking the time to capture this city-state, I'm able to earn a free social policy since it's a cultural city-state, and finish off the honor tree. Plus, the city has 2 horse resources, which will allow me to field more horse units. After that, I conquer Western Xia, earn my 2 additional horsemen, and on turn 11, I'm able to declare war upon Jin. Zhang Zong leads the Jin dynasty. Their unique ability... I'm just joking, I'm not going to repeat that every time. I sweep through Jin's lands, conquer his cities, and bring his empire to ruin by turn 26. And by this point in time, thanks to the social policy that speeds up XP gain, I have a few Kashyyyks with logistics already. I use my gold to purchase a library, a coliseum, and a temple in my capital, as well as an additional Kashyyyk. Some of this gold I sourced from the other civs by trading away my resources. At this point, I split my army in two. Part of my army starts attacking China, whilst I send the rest of my army west towards Persia to begin my conquest on them. China proves to be more threatening than I anticipated given the large size of their army, and they managed to kill one of my Kashyyyks and seriously wound another. But then something terrible happens. Barbarians attacking my capital managed to pillage my horse pasture, and now I have a strategic resource deficit. This is really bad, as it gives all my horse units a minus 50% combat penalty, something which seriously slows my wars against Persia and China, especially when that penalty combines with the unhappiness penalty that I am also dealing with. I managed to repair my horse pasture, but things are still going poorly as Persian pikemen attack Uyghur and take the city, and then they distract the army I have fighting China. But I'm able to retake the city with little issue before returning my attention to China. The Persian conquest goes well as I take city after city of theirs without much problem, yet my attempts to conquer China go poorly. I waste time trying to take Hangzhou from the north, when I should really be going after their other cities before flanking around from the south. And I mess up and get my horsemen killed. Twice! Requiring me to buy replacements each time. I also lose another Kashyyyk to the Chinese as well. On turn 70, I conquer Persia when I take their final city of Tabriz, a city I never conquered in my previous attempt, as Arabia had taken that from Persia. Meanwhile, in the north, Catherine of Russia asks me if I mean to declare war on her because she notices my Kashyyyks near her border. We mean no harm. Our troops are merely passing through the area. Psych! Catherine leads Russia. Their unique ability gives them additional strategic resources and a slight bonus to production from horses and iron. They also have a unique barracks improvement that boosts their city tile acquisition. But to be honest, in this scenario they don't really have a lot going for them. They are far away, but once you reach Russia, they aren't really all that special. I did find they used a lot of knights, probably due to their extra horse resources, but there isn't much special to Russia. On turn 83, I finally conquer China. Okay, so that took a lot longer than the previous attempt. I conquered China on turn 43 in my first attempt, and spent 26 turns at war with them. In this attempt, my war with China took 54 turns. Yikes! With that army now free, I start heading towards India. I also make peace with a bunch of city-states, although Korea really has it out for me and refuses to make peace. Hey Gandhi! Whoa! Okay, I guess he realized he was next on the chopping block. Gandhi leads India. Their unique ability, blah blah blah, something about happiness. India doesn't really have any uniques that matter in this scenario. The main problem with India is just getting to them, as there's a lot of rough terrain that makes reaching India difficult and time consuming. I choose to approach from the east, which took me a little while since my troops had to make their way through the jungle and across rivers, just beside this large mountain range. Oh look, rebels appeared in my capital. That's fun. Korea and China are no longer allies? No shit, China doesn't exist anymore. On turn 94, I conquer Russia. And with my other army, I'm still in the midst of attacking India. But it's pretty obvious at this stage that I'm not going to be winning the scenario on this attempt.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Also, can I just point out that Korea actually built up a combined land and naval force that they sent to Hangzhou, and just as soon as they do so, I lose. I just love the idea that as soon as Korea even approached me, my empire just collapses. Like, everyone's so freaked out by the Koreans, like, oh, we can't fight them, let's just surrender. I don't know, I've got to try and have a laugh about this, hey? Wait a minute. Genghis Khan has won? Alright, that's a wrap everyone, we've won. Now, there was actually a bit of time between the second and third attempts at this challenge, during which time I shifted focus to other projects. And when I came back to this scenario, I didn't jump straight into another attempt. I actually loaded the game up on an easier difficulty and just peacefully scattered out the map and took screenshots of each enemy civ, so I could have a good idea of the map layout. And I put those screenshots into this document I wrote up outlining my strategy for dealing with each civ, which I figured out through reviewing my first 2 attempts. I also noted some areas where I could improve upon my previous attempts. They were small things, like remembering to finish attacking with all my units before conquering a city that would give me a combat penalty, trying to focus damage on cities and ignore units that aren't an immediate threat, and just playing carefully and trying not to make silly mistakes like losing my units. I also decided that it would be better to annex the cities I kept rather than puppeting. I also decided with promotions that after logistics I would take siege and then range, instead of range and then siege. So yeah, I was serious. I wanted these achievements and I was determined to get them. I started out my third attempt by conquering Uyghur and then Western Xia, same as in attempt number 2. I then rushed Beijing and captured it by turn 14, which is the fastest I've captured that city so far. I then split my army into 2, with one going after Jin's city Liaoyang and the other going after Xi'an, which has already been conquered by China.
You don't seem to understand. Earth isn't yours to conquer.
Now, things didn't exactly go perfectly there. I did lose a horseman when attacking Liaoyang, which was a pretty embarrassing mistake to make, and I had some rebels spawn and I severely underestimated their strength and nearly lost one of my best Kashyyyks. Now I had this moment when fighting Persia, where I accidentally left one of my better Kashyyks in range of this city and a couple pikemen. So I intentionally left a second Kashyyyk with fewer promotions on this hill here to hopefully draw the fire away from the other one. And I was expecting to lose at least one Kashyyyk here, but miraculously, the Persians don't attack with their pikemen, and so both of my units survive. I got really lucky here. My next gaming session was cut short when my laptop overheated, and even worse, it corrupted the footage, so I can't show you what I did next. But basically, after I captured Urgench, Persia offered me 2 of his cities in exchange for peace. So I accepted his offer, and then split my forces in Urgench in 2. One half of the army went northwest towards Russia, whilst the other half headed south to attack India. Meanwhile, with the forces I had fought China with, I began my conquest on Japan, and took Daizafu the same way I had done in my first attempt, but much quicker and only at the cost of a single trireme this time. Now, I really thought that splitting my forces was the best option, since then I could fight multiple civs at once. I had 3 little armies that each had 3 Kashyyks, 1 horseman, and 1 Khan. But the problem is, each of these armies struggled to make good progress. I just stretched my forces too thin. And whenever I lost one of my units, it was such a devastating loss. Early into my attack on India, they one-shotted one of my Kashyyks with a knight, and without any way to safely reinforce my army, my conquest of India failed miserably, with me failing to conquer a single city. In fact, India actually gained a city by taking Urgench from me. My Russian conquest went better at the start, yet as I neared their final city, I lost a Kashyyyk, once again to a knight, and with this loss, my conquest of them really slowed down, though I did eventually conquer them. How did my conquest of Japan fare then? Well, I managed to conquer them with only 1 turn remaining, so it was down to the wire. It took a bit of time, but that's mostly due to the Japanese being situated on their island, which makes it trickier to get to them. I repeated the strategy that I had stumbled onto in my first attempt, that being to first conquer Daizafu, then peace out Japan for Kamakura, before starting a second war once my army was situated on the island to the east of Kyoto. So in the end, I once again only conquered a total of 4 civilizations, That's 3 attempts without any real improvement to my final score, so that doesn't exactly bode well. My 4th attempt started out really well. I started by taking Uyghur and Western Xia as usual, and then captured Beijing by turn 13, even quicker than in my previous attempt. I conquered Jin on turn 24, and China on turn 39. That's actually my quickest conquest of China so far. Although this was helped by the fact that, unlike my previous attempts, I had my entire army focused on China, rather than splitting half to go off and fight Persia. See, after my previous attempt, I figured splitting up less would be beneficial. Although once China fell, I sent 3 of my best Kashyyyks and a horseman to go after Japan, whilst the rest of my army headed west towards Persia. And this is where things started to go horribly wrong, specifically with the Persian front. See, I went to attack Samarkand from the north, which was the strategy I usually went with and that had worked in my previous attempts. Yet this time it didn't work. Persia was in a golden age when I went to war with them, and due to their movement bonus, I couldn't get close enough to the city to actually attack without leaving my Kashyyyks vulnerable to being attacked by Persian pikemen. Okay, so I'll send some Kashyyyks across the river and attack from the northwest then. Except the Persians deploy 4 pikemen to counter this plan. So I back away and kill the pikemen, before moving my Kashyyyks back across the river to attempt this tactic again. And Persia uses this moment to send a knight out to one-shot one of my Kashyyyks. Great. With half my Kashyyyks across the river, I can only barely wound the knight. And in my panic and frustration, I accidentally leave one of my high-ranking Kashyyyks in range of Samarkand, allowing the city to attack and damage the Kashyyyk. And then the knight swoops in to finish off the unit. So, in an act of desperation, I peace out Persia for nothing, and elect to send that army off to fight Russia instead, and leave Persia till later. Yet I don't even reach Russia before they, alongside India, declare war on me. So that's fun. I approach the first Russian city and immediately lose a Kashyyyk to a Russian knight. Yeah, I'm really starting to despise knights in this game. Thankfully, I'm able to capture the city without any further casualties. The Japanese front doesn't go so well either. I managed to take Daizafu without issue, yet afterwards I lose my horseman to a Japanese trireme since I forgot how the base game handles embarked units. So I purchase a new horseman and send them east, and guess what happens to them? Whilst I'm trying to wear down the Japanese so they'll give me Kamakuro, I move a bit recklessly and disembark a Kashyyyk here on the Japanese mainland, proceeding to them getting one-shot by a samurai. And I was getting so frustrated at this point that I ended up saving and taking a break here. I came back to finish off the scenario, but once again I had issues with my laptop, and it randomly restarted, corrupting my recording. So I can't show you the rest of the attempt. But you're not missing much if I'm being honest. I eventually managed to conquer Russia at around turn 80 or so, but my conquest of Japan stalled. I mean, I paced them out for Kamakuro like usual, but with only 2 Kashyyyks and a trireme, I just didn't have the firepower to take Kyoto. And although my laptop crashed at around turn 92 or 94 or something like that, it was pretty obvious that I wasn't going to be able to take Kyoto. Oh yeah, by the way, I didn't even bother reaching turn 100 in this. I couldn't be fucked. After conquering Russia, I started a couple additional wars. The army I used to take Russia went south to take on Alexander the Not-So-Greek, whilst a fresh force of about 3 to 4 new Kashyyyks tried to attack Persia from the northwest of Urgench. But Persian knights once again wreaked havoc on my forces. Actually, Persia even managed to conquer Kiev, the Russian capital. India actually deployed a sizable army to fight me, attacking me first at Western Xia, and then shortly afterwards at Uyghur. I was able to fend them off pretty easily though, since each city had an archer garrison and walls built, plus I had a couple Kashyyyks nearby. Anyway, long story short, I conquered a total of 3 civilizations, a score that's worse than my previous attempts. So I was extremely demoralized after this. I had expected the scenario to be quite difficult, and I knew going into it that it would take multiple attempts, but I figured a few attempts in I would have at least made some notable progress, maybe managing to push myself further to conquer 5 or even 6 other civs. But 3? That was bad. I was beginning to learn a lot of things about this scenario, yet it seemed that for all my knowledge and planning, I was getting no closer to achieving my goal. Okay, so here's one major issue I have to deal with in this scenario. My Kashyyyks, the very backbone of my army, are so incredibly vulnerable. Now, yes, as a ranged unit, they can attack without incurring damage, and thanks to their special ability, they can move after attacking, allowing me to keep them safe from counterattack. But the thing is, it's very difficult to keep the Kashyyyks safe throughout the entirety of the scenario. Now, most of the enemy units I face have a movement of 2, and ranged units in cities have a range of 2 for their attacks. So in theory, as long as I keep my Kashyyyks 3 tiles away, they should remain safe. There are 3 things that make this not true in some cases, however. 3 hazards that must be kept in mind. Hazard number 1 is roads. Most of the civs that I have to fight have roads established between their cities, and movement along these roads can allow enemy units to move further in a single turn. During attempt number 4, I lost a Kashyyyk when attacking Xi'an because I had my troops on an enemy road, allowing the Chinese to reach my Kashyyyk. The second hazard is the Persian Golden Age. Now, yes, this only applies to a single civ, Persia obviously, but it's a major issue. With the extra movement granted by this ability, Persian pikemen can move 3 tiles, and this drastically affects my wars with Persia, since I have to position my troops further away to keep them safe, hence making it more difficult to attack. The third hazard is one I'm sure you already figured out, but it's mounted units. Specifically knights. They're incredibly dangerous, as you've seen from examples in this attempt alone. Knights have enough combat strength to one-shot a Kashyyyk 9 times out of 10, and they have 4 movement, meaning positioning my troops far enough away from them is pretty much impossible, given that I can't even see that far away. By the time I can see an enemy knight, I'm close enough for them to hit me, and sometimes I don't even see them until they emerge from the fog of war to ruin my day. If I catch a knight exposed in the open and can attack them, it takes multiple hits from my Kashyyyks to kill them. Depending on promotions and just RNG, it could take around 3 to 5 hits to kill them. And if they're garrisoned in a city, I can't even attack them at all. And knights can use roads too for extra movement. Plus they also benefit from the Persian Golden Age, which means Persian knights can have 5 movement total. Now all this is bad enough, but the problem is that losing Kashyyyks is a major setback, and when I'm on such a tight time limit, I cannot afford even little setbacks. All it takes is one mistake, one poorly chosen movement, one miscalculated attack, one unforeseeable knight ambushing me, and I lose a Kashyyyk, and likely one that has earned many promotions, which, as we have seen in this video, can significantly stall or halt my conquest. In attempt 3, a single Indian knight killing one of my Kashyyyks led to me failing to conquer even a single Indian city. In attempt 4, losing a single Kashyyyk to Japan led to me failing to conquer the city of Kyoto. It's not just because I'm down a unit, it's because it's not easy to replace these Kashyyyks. Even with their high movement and plenty of roads placed around the map, it can take several turns for a new Kashyyyk to reach the front lines, and any new Kashyyks will have maybe 1 promotion at most if built somewhere with a barracks. It's not till the 4th promotion that you can unlock logistics, which is the most important promotion, as it grants the unit an additional attack each turn. Reinforcing the front lines isn't exactly safe either. I mean, check out this footage of my Kashyyks getting attacked in the middle of nowhere as I try and send them to rejoin the rest of the army. And it's not like I can just have an infinite amount of Kashyyks. Each one requires a horse resource, so I'm limited in the number I can have. My capital has 8 horses. Ukher and Western Zaire each have an additional 2, so that's 12 I can pretty much get right from the start. And whilst that seems like a lot, it's really not. Each horseman also requires one, so that reduces how many Kashyyyks I can have as well. But anyway, that's enough rambling about Kashyyyks and how vulnerable they are. I did actually implement some new strategies in this attempt that I want to point out. Firstly, I switched my cities to production focuses. This not only means I can build things quicker, but a production focus means less growth, and thus a smaller population. This is important as the more population I have, the more unhappiness I get. So by limiting growth, I can at least limit unhappiness a touch. The Chinese capital of Hangzhou is a high population city, and after I conquered the city in this attempt, it had a population of 9, which produces a lot of unhappiness. So I put it on a production focus and then sold the granary in the city, causing the population to starve. I kept this going for a few turns until I had a population of 3, and then switched to its focus so it wouldn't starve further. Now there's fewer unhappy people in my empire. Speaking of happiness, I figured out that I can usually earn enough culture to get 2 additional policies following the completion of the honor track. So I chose to get the piety opener, followed by organized religion. This policy grants a point of happiness for each monument and temple, so I build monuments in all my cities for the happiness. In terms of production, I spent most of my 4th attempt training Kashyyyks in my capital, whilst in my other cities I would start by training an archer, which I would garrison inside the city, before switching focus to build a bunch of buildings, specifically aiming for anything to increase my happiness. Now, the archers that garrison inside my cities actually grant an additional point of happiness too, thanks to one of the honor policies. But that's not the only reason I build them. It also allows me to protect my cities from barbarians or enemy invasions, which is quite important. So, where to from here? Well, there's not much else to do but start my 5th attempt. This time, however, I have an idea for a different attack route, so we'll see how that goes. So, I begin my 5th attempt at this scenario with one goal in mind, not to win the scenario, but merely to conquer at least 5 civs and improve my score in comparison to the previous attempts. But this wasn't going to be easy. As you've seen, time is tight, and conquering entire civs is a lot of work. But I was determined to get this done and make some actual progress. The start of this attempt was textbook. Uyghur and Western Xia fell quickly, and then I declare war on Jin. And here you can see I've started to scam the AI. So basically, I sell off as much stuff to the civ as I can for gold. In this case, I sell my silver for all of Jin's gold, and then immediately declare war, meaning the deal ends and I get my silver back, but I still get to keep the gold that he gave me. Now, this is very scummy behavior, but this scenario is tough, so I don't feel bad at all for this. And I've been doing this at times in the previous attempts, but by this point I'm pretty much doing it before every declaration of war, and I'm trying to absolutely maximize the gold I can get out of them. And combining this with the gold I get for selling buildings in cities I'm raising, plus the gold I get for killing units since I have the honor track complete, I end up earning a bunch of gold despite the fact that I'm pretty much always running a deficit. Anyway, Jin's conquest is flawless, and then I move on to fighting China. On turn 29, I capture both Chengdu and Xiangyang, and then I start moving the Chengdu army west, whilst the other army will continue attacking China. Yet my capital comes under attack from multiple barbarian units, which manage to pillage one of my horse pastures, which is a pretty bad setback. And as a result, this happens. As if a few brutes and archers weren't bad enough, rebels then appear in my capital, specifically 2 pikemen. And in my frustration with what's happening, I do accidentally leave a Kashyyyk in range of a Chinese city, though thankfully they just take a bit of damage and survive. But anyway, I managed to repair my horse pasture to get rid of that devastating 50% combat penalty, at least for a couple turns before my other horse pasture gets pillaged. But after that, I fight off the barbarians at my capital as well as the ones attacking Uyghur. Anyway, remember how I was talking about roads being dangerous earlier? Well, it turns out I'm too much of a dumbass to listen to my own advice, and this happens. And the worst part is, that it was literally the last turn China got before I conquered them. But whatever. Anyway, it's been quite a few turns, so you may be wondering what my Western army is doing. Well, I've sent them all the way over to Russia to attack them, and this time I attack their capital first, rather than working my way to it last. This is because capturing the Russian capital will provide me with an additional 2 horse resources, so I figured capturing that earlier would be good for me, as well as preventing Russia from holding those horses. Anyway, on their first turn during the war, a Russian horseman emerges from the darkness to one-shot a Kashyyyk. So, fuck me. A horseman doing it is even more frustrating than a knight due to their lower combat strength. But I guess that's what happens when my unhappiness is basically always in the double digits. Luckily, when the same thing happens again, my Kashyyyk is able to survive on a few hit points. In the east, I decide to change up my strategy for Japan. See, they briefly allied Korea, so I decided rather than trespass in Korean lands, I'll just attack Japan from the north first. So I land my army on this northern island before declaring war upon Japan. Both of these wars begin slowly. On the Russian front, due to losing one of my Kashyyks, I had limited firepower to fight off their units and damage Kiev, as I awaited the rest of my reinforcements to slowly make their way over. But then my unhappiness comes down to single digits, the Russians start running out of units to defend Kiev, and my reinforcements arrive, quickly turning the tide of battle and allowing me to capture Kiev. With Kiev's fall, I gain access to more precious horse resources, and Russia loses access to them, so hopefully they won't be able to one-shot me with any surprise horse units anymore. Now, I want to starve the population of Kiev, as I did with Hangzhou, but it takes me a few turns to figure out how to do so. For this city, I simply send all the citizens into unemployment, and with nobody working the farms, the city starves until I'm happy with its population. I advanced on Novgorod from the south with my now bolstered force of Kashyyks. Catherine actually sends me a peace deal offering the city as well as over 700 gold pieces, which I do strongly consider taking, but ultimately I decide to reject the offer and continue the attack, managing to seize Novgorod within a few turns. And not long later, I managed to wipe out the Russians when I seized their final city. As my war with Japan starts, I bombard some of their units with my Kashyyks, whilst disembarking my swordsman on his main island to establish a beachhead. The first landing doesn't go well, but after retreating and healing up, I'm able to make a second landing, and this time I'm successful in establishing a beachhead. I do unfortunately lose my horseman when attempting to cross, but I'm able to slowly bring my Kashyyks and Khan over without losing any. And now my East Army is fighting the Japanese on their island. Hey Mum, can we have Byzantium? We have Byzantium at home. Byzantium at home. Michael VIII leads Byzantium. His unique ability allows his city-state influence to last longer, and he has a unique mounted unit, the Companion Cavalry, which is more dangerous than the horsemen it replaces, but probably isn't quite as dangerous as a knight. He only has 2 cities which are located pretty much right next to each other, so his empire is rather small, but he has a densely packed mass of units I need to chew through first. He's allied with the nearby city-state of Hungary, so I need to be careful with unit placement, and there is also a lot of rough terrain to his north, so the war begins slowly. Meanwhile in the east, my army arrives at Kamakuro and begins to attack the city, and I easily seize it in short order. I then offer Oda peace if he gives me Daizafu, which he graciously accepts like the dumbass he is. Whilst I wait for my peace treaty to expire in the east, in the west I'm slowly advancing on Byzantium, but they have so many units that I need to annihilate before I can attack their cities. Some of them do embark, which is nice, as embarked units actually receive very consistent damage. They always take 4 damage from ranged attacks, so 3 ranged attacks will wipe them out. This is nice due to the predictability, since normally attacks have a lot of RNG associated with them, potentially dealing way more damage than expected, or way less. I'm able to start attacking the city of Thessalonica on turn 83. I have a couple Kashyyks with both range and indirect fire, allowing me to hit the city even through all this rough terrain. But of course there's more units flooding in and demanding my attention. Longswordsmen and pikemen don't frighten me considering all the rough terrain limits their movement, but companion cavalry are genuinely terrifying. On turn 86, one does swoop out to attack a Kashyyk, though fortunately only wounds it. However, due to the tight positioning and some bad RNG on damage rolls, I'm forced to embark this Kashyyyk and retreat it to keep it alive, and all these attacking units relieve the pressure I'm putting on the city, allowing it to heal up a bit. My peace treaty with Oda expires and I immediately jump on him with a declaration of war. Over the next few turns, I am forced to focus on killing the enemy units at both fronts. However, I do manage to also damage Thessalonica. On turn 92, I managed to capture Thessalonica, leaving the Eastern Greek Empire with only a single city. Well, at least for a moment, before Michael manages to retake the city. I purchased a replacement horseman in Kiev, and then try to kill some of their units, although they've deployed cannons now which take a lot of ranged attacks to destroy. I managed to destroy the nearer one on flat ground, but the farther one is too difficult to reach. In the east, I begin attacking Kyoto. I did lose my swordsman, but I had sent a replacement horseman during the peacetime, so I still have a melee unit with which to seize Kyoto when the time comes. There's now only 5 turns left. Kyoto falls easily and I conquer Japan, but Byzantium still has 2 cities, including Constantinople, which I have yet to attack. If I want to conquer 5 civs, I need to take Byzantium. 4 turns left. Thessalonica has so little health, yet my horseman still needs to cross the river before I can take the city. Plus they're still deploying many units, and that cannon from earlier is now garrisoned in the city. I focus on killing the units and move my horsemen into attack range. Between the city range strike and the cannon, I do lose a Kashyyyk on the enemy turn, however. 3 turns left. I retake Thessalonica, then move in on Constantinople very aggressively, leaving multiple units in range of the city, and landing a few hits on it. With all these units occupying space here, they can't move their melee units over to attack me, and I only suffer a few ranged attacks. 2 turns left. I quickly bring Constantinople down from green health all the way to red health. 1 turn left. I reduce the city to minimum health, then move in with my horsemen, capturing the city and conquering this little bitch. Hashtag not my Byzantium. I rename the city to its true name, and with that, I've officially done it. I've conquered 5 out of 8 civs in the Mongol scenario on Deity difficulty. So, to answer the question I posed at the start of this video, no, I can't beat the Mongol scenario on Deity difficulty. At least, not yet. I'm going to continue attempting to beat this scenario, but it's probably going to take a while, and I wanted this video to release this year, so I needed to bring this video to a close. And finally increasing my score from 4 civs conquered to 5 seems like a good enough place to take a break. Now, as I'm sure you've figured out by now, I failed my goal of earning all the achievements in Civ 5 this year, but that's okay. I made good progress, earning a bunch of other achievements in between these videos covering my Deity scenario attempts. And without going into too much detail, this year has been very challenging for me. So I think I'm just going to move the goalpost to earning all achievements in 2026. So what achievements are left that I'm planning on making videos on? Well, there's Deity achievements for the following scenarios: Wonders of the Ancient World, Into the Renaissance, Fall of Rome, and 2 for Scramble for Africa. Plus, I still need to actually beat this Mongol scenario. There is also a Deity achievement for the 1066 Viking Conquest scenario, but I already have that achievement, having earned it back in January of 2022. If there's interest, I would love to revisit the scenario for this channel, but since I don't need to play it for any achievements, it's not a priority. Plus, there are other scenarios without Deity achievements, and I could maybe be convinced to do some of them for this channel, but again, they're not a priority right now. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more Civ 5 content, then please consider subscribing, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye!